Hello and Assalamu alaikum. I am Kashif Kamran and I welcome you to the fifth and the final day of the Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar being organized by ACCA Pakistan for September 2019 exam papers. Now, on the fifth and the final day of this Practice to Pass webinar, my focus will be on reporting. And in terms of reporting, uh, I will be identifying the students' weaknesses and how students can improve upon in making a very good answer for a reporting question in the exam paper. So let's get to the subject matter and let's start understanding reporting and the examiner expectation and are we really meeting the examiner expectation. Now in terms of the day 5, if you look at the left side of the screen, you will see the practice questions to come in the session today for the exams in September 19. I will be doing two questions today, one from June 17, the question number 5, and one from December 14, the question number 5. Then on the right hand side of your screen, you can see that in each of my previous webinars from March 18 to June 19, I have consistently covered reporting as an area. So if you want to have more practice of reporting and you want to do more questions apart from June 17 question 5 and December 14 question 5, you can explore the previous webinars because they can really help you with more practice into this specific topic. Now, another good thing with reporting is that there is an exam technique article on reporting, which is the exam technique article part 5. Now, I have been consistently guiding you about these exam technique articles over my last 4 days, and I've been very specific that all of you should be reading these exam technique articles, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. And today we're coming to the last part, which is the fifth and the final part, which covers reportings. And this is such a wonderful article again, which tells you what to write and how to write. And more importantly, it also tells you about the common mistakes the student do when they are attempting a question on reporting. So please ensure that you find time for reading this article. If you have already read it, that's very good. If you have still not read it, then please ensure that you read this article because this is such an important article which can really be an eye opener for all of you in terms of the blunders and in terms of the mistakes the student do in a reporting question. Okay, now let's start on with the topic today, which is reporting. And in the very first part of the session today, I will be focusing on making a structure for reporting. And then in the later part of this practice to pass session today, I will be focusing on drilling the exam papers from June 17 and December 14. Okay, now let me take on my Word file as I have been consistently using that over my last 4 days. And this brings me to the fifth and the final day. And let's see how we can structure this topic report and how comfortable you can feel at the end of the session today in handling a question on report. Okay, now let's start understanding first the topic, first the requirements, which comes on the question on report. Then again, the same thing. What are examiner expectations from this topic? Then the marking scheme, and then finally moving down towards drilling an exam paper so that you know how to write a good answer. Now, keeping these four things in mind over the next 3 hours, let's first start with some of the requirements which are critical for your exams in September because there are so many requirements which comes on a reporting question and you should be familiar with all of them. Okay, let's first start with requirements. Now, this is an area where there are numerous requirements. This is not like an area on audit risk where the requirement is just a single requirement, evaluate the audit risk. Or this is not like an area on ethical and professional issues where the requirement is evaluate the ethical and professional issues. Or this is not like an area on procedures where the examiner says recommend procedures. Or this is not like an area on evidence where the examiner says explain the evidence in the working paper file. This is an area which has a diversified looking requirements. Now, first of all, in an exam hall, when you look at the question 2, the question 2 is a designated area where reporting has to fall, because the question number 2, I even made that clear on the day 1 of the Practice to Pass webinar, that the question number 2 is a completion and reporting stage question. So definitely the reporting question is in the question 2, and that has been very consistent since September 18 exams, December 18 exams, March 19 exams, and June 19 exams. Consistently, it is coming in the question number 2. Now, in the question number 2, on average, 15 marks are allocated to reporting. Now, we know the question number 2 is worth 25 marks, right? Examiner can use 5 to 10 marks on evidence, on ethical and professional issues. Examiner can use 5 to 10 marks on the new article like data analytics, but examiner keeps most of the marks like 15 on reporting. It can be less than 15 even, but on average, it sounds like 15 marks do come on reporting in the question number 2. Now, what exactly these 15 marks expects from a student and what the student should be preparing for in these 15 marks. Now, when you look at these 15 marks, the very first requirement which comes on this area is which asks for matters. Then there is a requirement which asks for actions. Then there is a requirement which asks for impact or the implication for the audit report. Then there is a requirement which asks for impact or the implication for the financial statements, for the financial statements. And then there is a requirement in a question on reporting which asks for critically appraise the audit report. Now, I am not doing this. I've already done this many times in my previous webinar. The reason for that is that this has come in March 19 and this has also come in June 19. So the chances is less, but you should not go to the exam hall unprepared on critically appraise the audit report. I'm not covering this in this September 19 webinar, but you can see this being covered in my previous webinars on reporting. But critically appraise the report has come in March 19 and June 19. So I'm not doing any exercise on that, but I'm more interested in doing an exercise on the first 4. Matters, what are they? Actions, what are they? Impact on the audit report, what exactly is an impact on the audit report? And then student gets confused. Impact on the financial statement. Please read the question on reporting carefully. At times, the examiner says impact on the financial statement and on the report. Impact on the financial statement is something different. Impact on the audit report is something different. We just see the word impact in an audit report and we believe that this is an impact on the audit report. So please carefully see the number 3 and number 4, all of you. Can all of you see the difference between number 3 and number 4? Because most of the time, the students see the word impact and they think, okay, this is an impact on the audit report. But is number 3 different and number 4 different? If I can get your responses on that. Number 3 is asking impact on the audit report, right? Number 4 is asking impact on the financial statement. So do we read the full statement in exam paper? Or do we just pick the word impact? Do we just pick the word impact and conclude this is an impact on the audit report, right? So I'll be going through the first 4 right into the session today, so I can give you a better guidance on how to write matters, actions, impact on the financial statement, and then impact on the audit report. The only thing I'll not be covering, the reason I've covered that in previous webinar, and for the reason it has come in the recent papers, this is the critical appraisal of the reports and just striking that off. right? I'll be explaining the difference, obviously, as I start my session. Okay, the next thing after the requirements. Examiner expectations. I will be covering each of these requirements, right, in my session today. Matters, actions, impact on the audit report, and impact on the financial statement. So I'll be coming back to these requirements in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But the first thing before I get into the requirements is to look at the examiner expectations. Let's read the examiner expectations. Examiner has so many expectations from student when it comes to this topic on reporting. If I take you to the next Word file, right in front of your screen, you can see examiner expectations on reporting. I'm reading the first paragraph of examiner expectation, which is from the March 19 examiner report. And the examiner says in the very first paragraph, which is right here in front of your screen, this one, examiner says, reporting is not an area of the syllabus that is particularly difficult. See, reporting is an area of a syllabus that is not difficult, and that is true. And with a structured approach and an understanding of the opinions and reporting, candidates should be able to score high marks. So examiner thinks that you should have a structured approach towards reporting, and you should have an understanding of the opinions so that you can score high marks here. So examiner says this is not a difficult syllabus area, and I'll be proving that in the next 3 hours that this is not at all a difficult syllabus area. Indeed, it needs a structured approach. So you need to have a structured approach to score very high marks on reporting. I normally believe that reporting is an area where you can gain marks. Reporting is an area where you can gain a lot of marks. If not 10% marks, 100% marks. It is an area where you can score between 80 to 90% marks of the total marks given for the reporting question. So let's see if we can do that in the next 3 hours, and are we becoming capable of taking 80 to 90% marks allocated to reporting. Okay, so are you all prepared for that challenge? How many of you at the very start of the session today believe this is not a difficult area, because examiner is saying this is not an area of the syllabus which is particularly difficult? So do you agree with that? How many of you agree with that? With the examiner March 19 report, that examiner is saying this is not a difficult syllabus area. So do you agree with examiner ruling here? Okay, that's wonderful to see that quite a lot of the students do agree with what the examiner is saying. And yes, there are some disagreements even, because obviously the students cannot be comfortable with any syllabus area. A lot of times the students are uncomfortable with the entire syllabus area. So that's how the student think about the syllabus basically. Okay, can we have a structured approach to make it look better? Examiner says that there needs to be a structured approach. So should I be guiding you on that structured approach in the next 3 hours today to guide you how can you be better? So do one thing, see your confidence level on reporting now, and see your confidence level after 2 hours, right? I'll be asking you after 2 hours, what is your confidence level, and do you find it an easier syllabus area, right? So just see yourself now and after 2 hours. Okay, the next comment of the examiner. The next comment of the examiner is more interesting comment, right? If you look at the next paragraph, it says, common mistakes made in this question arose where candidates determined that directors were right and the auditors were wrong. Is that right? In a question on risk, in a question on reporting, is that the right perception? Examiner is saying that the candidates determined the directors were right and the auditors were wrong. Is that logical? In a question on reporting, the director has to be wrong and the auditor has to be right. How can you imagine in an exam paper that director is right and the auditor is wrong? See, examiner is covering that. Examiner is saying that student believed directors were right and the auditors were wrong. So will you go with that belief in exam paper? Or will you have a vice versa belief? Will you have the vice versa belief? Okay, number two, or where they propose to include a qualified opinion for an immaterial misstatement. Propose to include a qualified opinion for an immaterial misstatement. Is that right? Is that right? Do we give a qualified opinion for an immaterial misstatement? Do we give a qualified opinion for an immaterial misstatement? But students do that. I have even seen students in my physical classes that students have so much rush and panic on a reporting question that whatever problem they get in a reporting question, for every problem they say qualified opinion. I have no idea why students like qualified opinions so much that for every problem in an exam paper, they think, okay, a qualified opinion, a qualified opinion. So examiner is saying that student includes a qualified opinion for an immaterial misstatement. Number three, candidates should not assume that every issue in a reporting question will lead to a qualified opinion. So is that good? Candidates should not assume that every issue in a reporting question will lead to a qualified opinion. And that is what the candidate assume basically. This is a very wrong assumption. So candidates should not assume that every issue results in a qualified opinion, right? So if any one of you is assuming, please try to change your assumptions. You still have 3 weeks. You still have 3 weeks before exam hall. So if you have that assumption in your mind, try to change that assumption. Okay, then in the last line, the examiner says, an immaterial misstatement does not give rise to modification. And to the opinion, and conversely, modification cannot be avoided for material errors by including an emphasis of a meta paragraph instead. Read this line very carefully. An immaterial misstatement does not give rise to modification of the opinion. Is that true? An immaterial misstatement does not give rise to the modification of the opinion. Is that true? So, will you give a qualified opinion for an immaterial thing? Will you give a qualified opinion for an immaterial thing? Will you assume in the exam paper that every issue will result in a qualified opinion? Every opinion in every issue in the exam context will result in a qualified opinion? And then see the most biggest blunder of the student community. And I'm addressing those who are repeating AAA, right? This is the most biggest blunder. It says, conversely, modification cannot be avoided. Modification cannot be avoided for material errors by including an emphasis of a meta paragraph instead. Can we include an emphasis of a meta paragraph for a material error? Can we include an emphasis meta paragraph for a material error? If there is a material error, what will happen? Tell me. If there is a material error, what will happen? A qualified opinion, right? A qualified opinion. But for a material error, can we give an emphasis of a meta paragraph? So is emphasis of a meta paragraph a substitute of a qualified opinion? Is emphasis of a meta paragraph a substitute of a qualified opinion? No. So are you understanding this very important paragraph in front of you? How many things the examiner covered in this paragraph? Examiner says students assume that directors are right and auditor is wrong, number one. That student includes a qualified opinion for immaterial things, two. That students assume every issue results in a qualified opinion, three. And then for immaterial misstatements, the student gives a qualified opinion, and for a material error the student gives a emphasis of a meta paragraph. So is this important? Will you remember this all for your exam paper, this paragraph we just did in the session? You will be getting the recording of the session, right? Go through it again, and please ensure that you have taken the notes effectively of this very important paragraph I read in the live session. Then comes to the last paragraph. I'm reading the last paragraph, right? Candidates should also note that when presenting audit opinion, it is not sufficient to say the opinion must be modified, as this would mean any four possibilities. So if you go to the exam and you write something like this, for example, student way of writing, and examiner is saying this is not the good way, rather this is what student way of writing and this is what the examiner expects from a student. Let's do a good analysis so that you know exactly how can you improve yourself. Examiner is saying, number one, it is not sufficient to say opinion would be modified. So it is not sufficient to say opinion would be modified. So a lot of times students have a habit in exam paper that whenever they find an issue, they will simply say it will result in a modified report, or it will result in a modified opinion. Examiner says, no, this is not possible, because if you say modified, you need to clarify which modified, because modified can be qualified, modified can be adverse, modified can be disclaimer. So examiner says it will result in a modified opinion. No, examiner says candidate should state the type of modification. The type of modification, example, a qualified on the basis of a material misstatement to score marks. So the column on the left is wrong. It will result in a modified opinion. Examiner says, no, this is wrong. What is right? It will result in a modified opinion, that is a qualified opinion should be given due to a material misstatement. So are you finding the difference what the examiner expects from you? So in the exam paper, will you only write it will result in a modified opinion, or will you specify the class of the modified opinion? So will you tell examiner modified opinion, that is adverse opinion, modified opinion, that is disclaimer of opinion, modified opinion, that is a qualified opinion? Are you getting the first statement through, everyone? So will we only write modified, or will we specify the modification? So is the examiner expecting from all of you to specify the modification? Okay, number two, simply writing qualified will not attract full marks, as this could refer to either a material misstatement or an inability to obtain evidence. So suppose you go to the exam hall and you say it will result in a qualified opinion. So examiner says even this is wrong, because qualified opinion can arise because of a material misstatement, and qualified opinion can also arise because of an inability to obtain evidence. Is that true? Do you all agree with that? Qualified opinion can arise because of a material misstatement, and qualified opinion can also arise because of inability to obtain evidence. So should we specify that in exam paper it will result in a qualified opinion? Examiner says no, you should write it this way: it will result in a qualified opinion. It will result in a qualified opinion due to a material misstatement, or due to inability to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Okay, now give me quick answers, right? In an exam paper, will we write modified opinion or will we specify the type of opinion? Will we write modified opinion or will we specify the type of opinion? Okay. Second, when we tell the type of opinion, like a qualified opinion, so will we tell qualified opinion due to a material misstatement or a qualified opinion due to inability to obtain evidence? Is everyone getting that? See, you need to score 1 mark or half mark. What is your aim? What is your aim in September exams? Are you entering the September exam to score half a mark or 1 mark? So is everyone getting the situation what examiner expects from you when you want to score 1 mark? Right? Next situation. Similarly, look at this last paragraph right from here. I'm reading from similarly. Similarly, when justifying the severity of a modified opinion, candidates should justify whether something is pervasive or simply material to score full marks. So you need to justify whether it is material or you need to justify whether it is material and pervasive. So examiner has another expectation that you should specify, is it material, is it material or is it material and pervasive? So examiner wants a specification of what is it material, is it material and pervasive. Then only examiner is saying you can obtain full marks. Then the next one, simply stating something is not pervasive will only receive half a mark. This is consistent with the way audit reporting is marked in the audit and assurance paper, and candidates should be used to this approach. So will we simply tell this is pervasive or will we justify why it is pervasive? Examiner says if you say this is material, you will get half a mark. But if you justify material, you get one. If you say this is pervasive, you will get half a mark. But if you justify pervasive, you will get full mark. So what's the summary now? What's the summary? What we have learned from the examiner approach here? Okay, I need your concentration and I also need your yes and no answers as I proceed towards the summary. Please concentrate on the summary and assure that you have all this in mind before I start on with the marking scheme and I start on with the drilling process. Number one, examiner is expecting from us. Let's recap examiner expectations. Examiner expectations. Number one, don't write modified opinion. Don't write modified opinion. Rather, specify the type of opinion. Is that true? Number one. Okay. Number two, don't write qualified opinion. Rather, justify, is it due to a material misstatement? Is it due to a material misstatement or an inability to obtain evidence? Inability to obtain evidence. And we need to apply this right in the session today. Number three, do you all agree with number two? Okay, number three, don't write it is material or pervasive only. Rather, justify why it is material, or why it is pervasive. Is that the summary what we got from examiner paragraph? Don't write modified, rather specify the type of opinion. Don't just write qualified opinion, tell is it due to a material misstatement or an inability to obtain evidence. Don't write it is material or pervasive only. It will give you half a mark. But rather justify why it is material or pervasive to take the full 1 mark. So is everyone clear on examiner expectation? And then some don'ts of the examiner. Number one, don't give immaterial things, can't result in qualified opinion. Is that true? Rather than saying don'ts, let's put them as like some important learnings. For immaterial things can't result in a qualified opinion, right? Okay, material errors can't result into emphasis of a meta paragraph. Emphasis of a meta paragraph. Was this what the examiner was telling us? Can we give a qualified opinion for immaterial things? No. And can we give an emphasis of a meta paragraph for a material error? So will everyone be controlling this all in the exam hall? Because a lot of time, even you know things and you try to spoil things. A lot of time I've seen students that even you tell them the logics. What was the examiner saying? Structured approach. Now, have you got some structured approach? What to write and how to write? Even when you know the structured approach, the student will take hypothetical assumptions. Student will take ifs and buts into their approaches. If you take ifs and buts into your approaches, you are spoiling your answer. You're spoiling your answer. What you read on the screen, who 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 is the author of this? The examining team, right? So do you trust your examining team? Do you trust what the examining team is saying? So will you hold them as valid for your exam paper and for your exam hall? And will you recall them in your exam paper that what you should be doing and what you should not be doing? Right? Okay, now off the examiner expectations. Once I start writing my answer, I will recall these examiner expectations, right? So when I'm writing an answer, my answer is worthy. My answer is worthy of examiner expectations. Okay, the next and the last thing. Okay, we got the examiner expectations, right? And we read the examiner report for those expectations. So we have already done that, right? Next, marking scheme. Reporting has a very simple marking scheme, right? In across the reporting question, 1 mark per point. Every point you write, every comment you write in a reporting question. So everything you're writing in a reporting question will give you 1 mark, irrespective of the requirement. So reporting has a marking scheme of 1, just like ethical, professional, and quality control issues. It has a 1 mark marking scheme across the question, entire question, right? Okay, now that's reading the structure. Now, do everyone knows the types of requirements which comes on a reporting question? Matters, actions, impact on the audit report, and the impact on the financial statement? Do everyone knows the expectations of the examiner? And is everyone knowing the marking scheme now? So it's the first thing done, right? We now need to start on with the drilling of the exam paper because we will be learning so many things from the drilling process. Now, just before starting on with the drilling process, this article, which is the must to read article on reporting, which is exam technique for advanced audit and assurance, exam technique for advanced audit and assurance. And you can see down here, part 5. This is a part 5, which is on reporting. I hope all of you must have read this because the exams are very near. I need to realize some very important paragraphs in this article, which will really help us once we start with the practice of the past papers. Now, please ensure you read this article. This is like a 9-page article. It gives you so many examples of the student blunders. I'll try covering them on and off in the next 2 hours. But I want to show you one very important paragraph of this entire article, which I believe is the key paragraph. And if you ignore that key paragraph, then reading this whole article is useless. Where is that key paragraph? The key paragraph is on the page number 8. Mark the page number 8. And on the page number 8, there is this paragraph. This is the second last paragraph of the article, which is the crux. And I'll be reading this paragraph with all of you to give you one good insight. This paragraph, which I have bracketed in a blue box, so that this becomes an important paragraph for us to read. I'm reading this, concentrate. Examiner says, in summary, so examiner is trying to sum up the whole article, right? Examiner is trying to sum up the whole article. In summary, candidates should expect to answer a question on audit reporting in exam under the new syllabus. To perform well in this area, candidate must. So examiner is saying if you want to perform good on a question on reporting, if you want to perform well on a question on reporting, what you should be doing? Number one, examiner says you should have an understanding of the types of opinion available. You should have an understanding of the types of opinion available. So you should have an understanding of the types of opinion. How many types of opinions are there? Can you all clarify me? There are four types of opinions, right? An unqualified opinion, then a qualified opinion, then a adverse opinion, and then a disclaimer of opinion. So there is an unqualified opinion. In our opinion, the financial statement gives a true and fair view. And then there are modified opinions. Modified opinions are three: qualified, adverse, disclaimer. Is everyone clear on the types of opinion? Number one, I'll be discussing them in more depth as I proceed further. But examiner is saying you should have an understanding of the type of opinion. Number one. Number two, understand the different additional components of the audit report. Understand the different additional components of the audit report. Do you know about different additional components of audit report? How many additional different components are there in the audit report? Number one, a paragraph known as material uncertainty relating to going concern. Do everyone knows this is an additional component of an audit report known as material uncertainty relating to going concern? Then there is another paragraph, which is an additional component of an audit report known as key audit matters, CAM, additional component of the audit report, right? Then there is another additional component of the audit report known as emphasis of a meta paragraph. Then there is another additional component of the audit report known as other meta paragraph. And then there is another additional component of the audit report known as other information paragraph. Other information paragraph. So should you just have knowledge of the opinions when you go to the exam hall? Or should you also have knowledge of the additional components? Should you have knowledge of CAM? Should you have knowledge of emphasis of a meta paragraph? Should you have knowledge of material uncertainty relating to going concern? Should you have knowledge of other meta paragraph? Right? Number two, I'll be discussing all of them in my session. Number three, read the requirements carefully. After that, examiner says once you have understanding, then read the requirements carefully to identify the correct areas to cover and whether. So after the understanding, examiner is saying read the requirements carefully. Read the requirements carefully so that you know whether I should be giving an opinion or should I be including an additional component. So if you read the requirements carefully, will you know exactly what is to be done in the question? Is the question asking us to give opinions, or is the question asking us to give the components like CAM or like another meta paragraph? So read the requirements carefully. Number one, for what? Examiner says read the requirement carefully. Number one, the company is listed. Now we know since the new report has come in, you must have seen these past papers that in a question the examiner says the company is listed. Even in a reporting question, the examiner says the company is not listed. You need to read the reporting question very carefully. Either the examiner will say this is a listed company, or the examiner will say this is not a listed company. Now, does that make a difference? Does that make a huge difference in a reporting question? Yes. Now, if you miss the line, the company is listed, you ignore this line. In a reporting question, right, I'm talking about. And in a reporting question, the examiner also tells you this is not a listed company. Have you ever seen this line in any other question like risk? This is not a listed company. In a question on risk, does the examiner bother to tell you this is not a listed company? Yes, the examiner do tell you in a risk question this is a listed company. But have you ever seen this line, this is not a listed company? But in the exam questions on reporting, since the new report has come in, the examiner even tells you this is not a listed company. So is there an importance of this line when you're reading the requirements? And I'll justify what's the importance of this line, right? Number two, the question asks for more than effects on the audit report, such as actions to be taken. A lot of time, the student believes that a question on reporting is just about impacts on the report. But the examiner is saying that the question on reporting does not only includes the impact. It might even ask you something like actions. How many times the student believes that a reporting question only includes impact? Read the question carefully. It might not just be asking you the impact, it might be asking you something like actions. So is it a problem with students that they normally believe that a question on reporting only includes impact, nothing else? Can a question on reporting include something else than impact? Right. Number three, the response in relating to audit opinion only or the wider effect of the audit report. Is the question asking for the impact on the audit opinion? Is the question asking for an impact on the audit opinion? Or is the question asking for an impact on the wider effect of the audit report? Wider effect of the audit report. So let's recap what is exactly the examiner expecting from us before we start on with the exam paper. And I need your concentrations now. Try to concentrate here. The final summary for reporting coming from the examiner article. Structured approach, right? Structured approach. Number one, understand. What are we understanding? Examiner says you need to understand two things. Which two things we need to understand? Number one, we need to understand the types of opinions. And number two, we need to understand the additional components of the audit report. So examiner is saying that as a student, you should understand the types of opinion and you should understand the additional components of the audit report. Number two, the examiner expects from us that we should read. Did you got these two words from the examiner article, understand and read? So I'm trying to make a summary of that. Understand A and B. Read A and B. What are we reading in the exam paper? Number one, examiner says read the requirements carefully. Read the requirement carefully. For what? Number one, is it a listed company or not? Is it a listed company or not? Number one, read the requirements carefully. For number two, is the question only asking for impact on report? Is the question only asking for impact on report or something else even? Something else even. Is that important? Is the question only asking for impact on report or something else even? Number three, is the question asking for opinions only? Is the question asking for opinions only or any other aspect of the audit report? Like CAM, like emphasis of a meta paragraph, like other meta paragraph. So is it essential to read the requirements carefully for 1, 2, 3? So are you getting this summary clear, everyone? Will this help you in exam paper? Structured approach, structured approach. You should have a structured approach. Right? Now let's make a final analysis. Types of opinions. How many types of opinions we have? Number one, an unqualified opinion. Number two, a qualified opinion. Number three, a adverse opinion. And number fourth, we have a disclaimer of opinion. These are four types of opinions you should know. Then comes number next thing, which is known as the additional components. The additional components of audit report. Additional components of audit report. Now, when you look at the additional components of audit report, for that, for that you need to bifurcate reports into two parts. One for listed company and one for non-listed company. I didn't did this bifurcation for types of opinion, right? Because types of opinions are for both types of opinions, but I'm doing a bifurcation now on additional components because examiner was saying you should read the requirement carefully whether it is a listed company, right? I'm not conducting a lecture on reporting, right? This is a practice to pass session, but I'm just trying to make the summary. Don't expect I go beyond the summary because that's not the need of the session, right? The need of the session is to practice the past papers, right? But I'm just trying to make this summary as an additional effort so it can facilitate all of you. Okay, now additional components for listed and non-listed. Number one, material uncertainty relating to going concern is a component for a listed company and is also a component for a non-listed company. So that's same. It can come in both context. Then there is a paragraph known as CAM. CAM is only for a listed company, whereas there is no CAM in a non-listed company. Then there is a paragraph known as emphasis of a meta paragraph, which is in a non-listed company, but there is no emphasis of a meta paragraph in a listed company. I'll clarify that from the examiner article. These are not my wordings, right? I'm taking every of these wordings from the examiner article, so I have justification proving. Okay, then there is a paragraph known as other meta paragraph, which is in listed, which is in non-listed. Then there is a paragraph known as other information paragraph, which is in the listed company and which is in the non-listed company. So the rest remains the same. Can you bifurcate now between listed and non-listed companies? Is this table clear to everyone? Now you need to have a structured approach. Even after this table, even if after this table you start to take ifs, MURGC for both companies, CAM for listed company, emphasis for non-listed company, other matter paragraph, and the final thing is the other information paragraph, right? There is already a question coming from a student asking no emphasis for a listed company. If you have read the examiner article, right, that must be very clarified. Let's give you a clarity. CAM for a listed company and emphasis for a non-listed company, right? Can you see the table? Let's do a clarification. If you need something in black and white, then this is something in black and white. Can you see a box in front of your screen? This is from the Examiner article. This is authentic exam technique article part 5. Can you see this article, an examiner saying some common errors in exam? Common errors in exam. And can you see this common error here? Can you see this last common error? Read it carefully yourself. Read the last common error, which I just bracketed in blue. It says using an emphasis of a meta paragraph for something which would be a key audit matter for a listed company. So is that clear? Are we using key audit matter in a listed company? Is there a key audit matter in a non-listed company? Is there a key audit matter in a non-listed company? No. Is there a key audit matter in a listed company? Yes. Is there an emphasis of a meta paragraph in a non-listed company? Okay. And is there an emphasis of a meta paragraph in a listed company? Right? And don't compare CAM with emphasis, right? CAM is CAM is significant. CAM includes so many things. You are not doing a comparison of a CAM and emphasis, right? My objective is not to do that. My objective is to guide you that CAM comes in a listed company, whatever is included in CAM. And my objective is to tell you that emphasis comes in a non-listed company, whatever is included in that. I'm not telling you the contents of both the paragraph, right? But is everyone clear that CAM comes only for listed company? Is everyone clear on that? Can you see this blue circling I've done on the screen? Using examiner is saying this is a common error in exam, using an emphasis of a meta paragraph for something which would be a key audit matter for a listed company. Is this line clear to everyone? After this line, I hope everyone should be clear that we are using a CAM in a listed company only, and we're using an emphasis in a non-listed company. Is everyone clear? Will you read these common errors in exam? Will you read this article for common errors? These are common errors which students do in exam paper. You cannot ignore them and go to the exam paper. So can you see my table now in front of your screen? Is everyone clear on this table? The types of opinion, 4. And then when we come to the additional components, I bifurcated the report into 2 parts. Did I bifurcated the reports for the types of opinion? Did I bifurcated the report for the types of opinion? No, because that's something standard. But did I bifurcated the report for additional components? So is it important in the exam to read, is it a listed company? Is it a non-listed company? Are you getting the importance of that? Is it a listed company or not? Is it important to read now? Can you do a blunder in the exam paper that a company is listed and you're still writing an emphasis of a meta paragraph? The company is listed and you're still writing an emphasis of a meta paragraph. Is it right? Is it wrong? Company is listed and you are writing an emphasis of a meta paragraph. Is it right? Is it wrong? Okay, company is non-listed. Company is non-listed and you're writing a CAM. Is it right? Is it wrong? Company is non-listed and you're writing a CAM. So is everyone clear now? Will you keep these logics? Right? Will you keep these logics? Okay, good. So is everyone ready now for starting off the papers? In this last 1 hour, those of you who were in the start of the session, now into 1 hour, are you feeling better on reporting in terms of the summary I tried to construct from the examiner article and from the examiner report and examiner article and this final table? Are you feeling better on reporting? Okay, that's great. Okay, now let's do one jump. Prior to the break, let's do the analysis of the past paper, and post break, I'll be starting on with the answer. part of it. Okay, I have two questions for you in the session today. Let's first understand them today. Firstly, the practice. In the practice for day 5, I have two questions. Let me make a table for that so we know exactly what are we doing. I have first the June 17 question, the question number 5A, and then I have a December 14 question, the question number 5B, right? Because we know reporting cannot be a full 25 marks question, on average 10 to 15 marks, right? So either it will be a part of a question A or B, something like that. Okay, now let's see what the question asks for. When I go to my past papers, which have been shared with you, and I see this question in front of my screen, which is from the June 17. And again, I've chosen these questions for some purpose, right? Because whatever I have discussed with you in the last 1 hour, I need to give you the application. And for that reason, I purposely choose these two questions so that you come very clear on what we discussed. Okay, now see this question and see the requirements. What was the examiner saying? Read the requirements carefully. Do you all remember that? Examiner was saying read the requirements carefully. Okay, let's read them. Okay, first, comment on the matters described above. Comment on the matter described above and explain the further actions necessary before audit report can be signed. So is the examiner asking two things in the first 7 marks, that we need to comment on the matters and then we need to think about the further actions necessary before the report can be signed? Okay, so first we need to comment on the matters. Second, we need to write further actions. Okay, next, discuss the implication for the audit report if no adjustments are made to the financial statement. So examiner is asking us discuss the implication for the audit report. So total how many marks we have? 12. How many things the examiner is asking us? 3. And are you very sure of the marks? 7 and 5. 7 and 5. Let me take that to my Word file. Number 1. Number 1 requirement, comment on the matter. Comment on the matter. Number 2, further actions. And number 3, implication for the audit report. Implication for the audit. That was implication for the audit report, right? That's implication for the audit report. Now we're definitely getting 5 marks for implication on audit report. Further actions and comment have in total 7. Everything we'll do will get 1 mark, right? So comment on the matters. The first comment on the matter is materiality. That's every time. So when we comment on the materiality, we'll get 1 mark. Plus, we need to comment on the accounting treatment as we did in the day 1. Comment on the treatment. I hope you remember the question on evidence we did on day 2. Comment on the matters and explain the evidence, right? Same. Comment on the materiality. Comment on the treatment too, and then comment upon the impact. We will not comment on the impact because impact is coming separately. Impact is coming separately. Can you see impact is given separately for 5 marks? So will I just comment on the materiality and the treatment? Right? 2. So bracket close. How many marks will I get for comment on the matters then? 2 marks. And then how many actions should I be writing? I should be writing how many actions? 7 minus 2. I should be writing 5 actions. Is everyone clear? 7 marks were there, right? There were 7 marks. After the 7 marks, I need to comment on the matter, materiality and treatment. Why didn't I wrote impact in my meta? Why didn't I wrote impact in my meta? Because it was given separately for 5 marks. So I get 2 marks for comment on the matters, right? And then how many actions I should write? 7 minus 2. I should write 5 actions. And implication for the report, how many marks I have? 5. Okay, is everyone clear about the diversity of the question? So is the question only asking for impact? Examiner was saying that the student normally thinks that a question on reporting only asks for impact. So is the question only asking for impact? Three things, right? Three things. Okay, now let's look at the December 14 paper. I'll be attempting this question in full with you, right? So don't be worried about that. So you will be getting an idea about how to write further actions, what are further actions, what is the implication, how to write implications. Don't be worried about that. Everything will be written in the session. Then you come to the December 14, right? Let's see what is the requirement of December 14 question. Okay, now this is the December 14 question right in front of your screen, which is this. Let's see what is the examiner asking in December 14 question. This is what the examiner is asking for in a December 14 question for 13 marks, 9 and 4. Let's see what is the examiner asking for 9 and 4. Explain the matters which should be discussed with management in relation to each of the uncorrected misstatement. And we have 9 marks. Explain the matters which should be discussed. Explain the matters which you should be discussing with the management in relation to each of the uncorrected misstatement. How many in uncorrected misstatements we have? If you go to the question, you will see there are 3 uncorrected misstatements. These are 3 uncorrected misstatements. 1, 2, 3. An examiner is saying in relation to each of the uncorrected misstatement, you need to write the comments. And we have exactly 9 marks here. So that means for each uncorrected misstatement, we have 3 marks. 3 marks for each uncorrected misstatement. Is everyone clear? We have 3 uncorrected misstatements. And we need to explain the matters which should be discussed with management in relation to each of the uncorrected misstatement. Then in the second part, the examiner says, assuming that the management does not adjust the misstatements, does not adjust the misstatements. Plural, plural. Adjustments of the misstatement means all, aggregate, aggregate. Assuming that the management does not adjust the misstatements. How many misstatements? 3. So can you see this word each coming here in the first part, each? Were we working on individual in the first part? Were we working on the individual misstatements in the first part? Is everyone getting that? Each means single. But in the second part, the examiner says, assuming that the management does not adjust the misstatements, all the misstatements, right? So examiner is taking the misstatements into the aggregate form. Justify an opinion. Examiner is saying justify an opinion and means a single opinion, right? And means a single opinion. Is everyone getting that point? And over in the above situation, each, will we be telling opinion for each individually in the 9 marks? First, we will be telling opinion for each. Then we will tell for aggregate. For aggregate, what should be the opinion? Normally, in a reporting question, we do individual misstatements, and for every individual misstatement, we'll tell what should be the opinion. Then we tell aggregate misstatements, right? And for aggregate misstatement, we tell what should be one opinion. So, for example, look at this. There is one misstatement of 300,000. I'll find the materiality and I'll tell whether the auditor should give a qualified opinion or an unqualified opinion. Then there is a second misstatement of $50,000. I will tell whether the auditor should give a qualified opinion or an unqualified opinion, individual, right? Then I'll go to 10,000 and I'll say for 10,000 whether the auditor should give an unqualified opinion or qualified opinion. This is individual, right? This is individual. Then I need to tell examiner that for all three, if I do the aggregation, what should be one opinion? So first I gain my marks for individual, then I gain my marks for aggregate. Is everyone becoming clear on that? Right? In the last question, I was showing you, which was June 17, in this question, this one, when the examiner is saying comment on the matters described above and the further actions, in this question there was only one misstatement. So when a question only have a single misstatement, I cannot do the aggregation, right? But if a question have three misstatements like this, should I be doing aggregation in exam paper? So the June 17 has a single misstatement, right? And the December 14 has three misstatements. Can you feel the difference between the two questions? Okay, so examiner is saying that for the aggregate misstatement in the part B, justify an opinion. Can you see that? Justify an opinion. Now, opinion can be qualified, opinion can be adverse, right? Justify an opinion. And can you see the break given by the examiner saying, and explain the impact on the report? Explain the impact on the report. So, can you see the word and? Is it breaking the requirement? Justify an opinion and explain the impact on the report. So we need to justify an opinion, right? And did we got this in the session today, how we justify an opinion? Will we only write qualified opinion, or will we tell qualified opinion and why? Justify. And will we tell material, or will we justify why it is material? So justify an opinion and explain the impact on report. How many marks we have for that? 4. Okay, let's do the breakup on the word file. Comment on the matters. Comment on the matters. And the second thing is justify an opinion and explain the impact on report. And explain the impact on report. 3 things, right? Everyone agrees we have 3 things. Okay, comment on the matters. How many marks we have for this? 9. And are we commenting on the matters for individual misstatement? Individual misstatements. So what should be my first comment? My first comment should be materiality for the individual misstatement. Then my second comment would be on the treatment. And for every individual misstatement, I will be writing the impact of the individual. Why I didn't wrote the impact in the June 17 question in matters? Because there was a matter even in June 17. Why I didn't wrote the impact? Because firstly it was separate, and secondly there was a single misstatement. Right? But in this question, there are individual misstatements which needs to be aggregated. So I will take the individual impact in the matters. And I will take the aggregate impact when I'm justifying the opinion. I'll take the aggregate impact when justifying the opinion. So how many marks will I get for materiality? 1, treatment 1, and individual impact 1. Are there 3 misstatements in the question? So 1 multiplied by 3, I'll take 3 marks for materiality, 1 for treatment, and there are 3 treatments in the case study, I'll take 3. Individual impacts, 3 misstatements, 1 multiplied by 3, I'll take 3. So am I getting to my 9 marks here? Is everyone clear on the 9 marks allocation? Okay, and justify an opinion and explain the impact on the report. In total, I have 4 marks, right? So I have 4 marks in total for this. I'll tell you how to bifurcate the marks when I go through. I have 4 marks in total for the last two requirements. Now tell me one thing. Did you got something from this last 10-15 minutes that how important is to read and understand the requirement? Examiner was saying students should read the requirement carefully. Now there might be many repeaters who are repeating the AAA exams in September. Have you realized how you read the requirements? How you read and understand the requirements? And we just rush through the requirements. Will we be getting the good marks? So have everyone realized the importance of doing this planning? Can you do this planning in the exam paper for 3 to 4 minutes? Will this really help you? So in the June 17 paper, how many things is the examiner asking? Matters, actions, implications. In the December 14 paper, how many things the examiner is asking? Matters, justify an opinion, and then the examiner is asking impact on the report. Is everyone clear on this? Now, I'm going to the break for 15 minutes. Post break, you need to do two things. You will start reading the June 17 question number 5A in the next 15 minutes, and you will start reading the December 14 question number 5B in the next 15 minutes. You will determine the materiality. You will take out the calculator, determine the materiality in the June 17 question and in the December 14 question, and write the materiality down with you on a piece of paper. So when I ask you in the session, tell me the materiality, you can give me the materiality answer. So you have 15 minutes of a break, but I will prefer that within the break, you also read through the June 17 question 5A and December 14 question 5B. So after the break, I can spend equal time on both the questions and can guide you upon how to write a answer. And then in the end of my session today, I think in the last 15 minutes or so, I will be giving you a approach of preparing yourself for September exams, because this is the last day today. And after that, you will enter the exam hall after 3 weeks. So you should have a proper focus and a proper approach as to how you should be preparing yourself for exams in September. So that would be in the last 15 minutes, which will really benefit all of you preparing yourself for exams in September. Okay, we're going off to a break now, and this break will be for 15 minutes approximately. It's a break, and it's a break till approximately 7:32 p.m., the Pakistan Standard Time. And during the break, you can take a rest, or you can just go through reading the past papers. Okay, just a quick feedback before I go to the break. How has been the session so far? The first 75 minutes of the session. Has it really benefited you, helped you, opened your eyes, mindset about reporting questions? Okay, so you will be benefiting more right after the break as I put into application, the application of things. So go to a break, 7:32 p.m. Be back to the live session so that you can benefit from writing of the answer. Welcome back after the break. We have structured the December 14 and the June 17 question number 5. Prior to the break, we understood the marking scheme and we understood exactly what the question is asking for. Now it's time to get into the answer plan one by one. Let's first start on with the June 17 question number 5 as the very first one and try to understand the fundamentals we learned in the session prior to the break. And just a reminder or just a housekeeping instruction that if any of your questions pertaining to very specific questions pertaining to reporting, which have been left unattended or could not be answered in the session today, please drop them over on the WhatsApp, the groups, so I can concentrate on them and respond to you. The June 17 question number 5, part A. Okay, let's see exactly what we need to do. We need to work upon matters, we need to work upon actions, and we need to work upon the implication for the audit report. Okay, let's see if we can write in the answer properly. If I go back to the question for June 17 and I start to read the question with you to make you realize what the examiner said in the report and what the examiner said in the article. Now concentrate on the screen. I'm reading the first paragraph from where the question is starting. You are a manager at Time and Company, a firm of chartered certified accountant. You are currently involved in completion stage of two engagements relating to different clients. Both engagements have raised issues that requires your attention. A situation. Rocket Company is a listed client. Can you see this is a listed client? And was the examiner saying that you need to focus upon whether the company is listed or the company is not listed? So is this company a listed company? It is operating in the engineering industry. The company manufactures machinery for use in the aircraft. The audit for the year ended 30th of April is almost complete. The revenue and the profit before tax recognized in the draft financial statements are 1437 million. So the revenue of this company is 1437 million and the profit of the company is $139 million. And we know why these numbers are given for us to determine the materiality. Audit procedures identified two sales transactions in the final quarter of the year that related to two different customers, but where the goods were delivered to the same location. So you identified two sales transactions in the last quarter to two different customers, but where the goods were delivered to the same locations, even though they were meant for two customers, but the location was the same. Further investigation revealed that the goods were delivered to a third party who agreed to store them until the customer were ready to receive delivery. The goods have yet to be delivered to customer. So have we met the performance obligation under IFRS 15, the revenue recognition? The goods are yet to be delivered to customer. When do we recognize revenue? When the goods are delivered to customer. So it says the goods have yet to be delivered to customer. So can we recognize revenue? No, because both are building new facilities and neither is sufficiently progressed to receive the new machinery. So the customers are building some new facilities, and for that reason, they are not receiving the inventory. The contract term explicitly state that Rocket is obliged to deliver goods to customer for final inspection and acceptance, and the client has not agreed to any consequent amendment. So what is the contractual term? The contractual term says that Rocket Company is obliged to deliver goods to the customer for final inspection and acceptance. And has there been any change to these contractual terms? The examiner is saying there has not been any change to these contractual terms. So when should we recognize revenue? When they have been delivered and when the customer has finally inspected them. Then only the performance obligation will be met. The sales invoices were raised and the revenue recognition upon dispatch of the goods to the storage facility. During discussion, the finance director stated that the company has fulfilled its contractual obligation to provide the goods by a specified date. The revenue attributable to the sales transaction, totaled $17 million. So has the management recognized these two sales transactions as a revenue? Yes, when they have been delivered to a third party, not delivered to a customer. So have they recognized revenue wrongly? Have they recognized revenue wrongly? Yes. So are we getting the track $17 million? Should that be reversed? Should the $17 million be adjusted? Yes. Okay. Now try to understand something here. Firstly, you will tell examiner that the two sales transactions, which the two sales transaction totaled $17 million is, can you first divide this by revenue? $17 million by the revenue 1437? Okay, wonderful. $17 million is 1.18% of the revenue and 12.23% of the profit, full stop. Thus, the two sales transactions are material to the financial statements. In a question on reporting, you need to find materiality on all the factors given. In this question, all the factors were revenue and profit, but all the factors can also include total assets. If in a reporting question you have the profit, you have the revenue, you have the total assets, you will divide them with all three. Over here, we only had two, so we divided them by both the factors. On whichever it is higher, whichever is the higher percentage will prevail. So the higher percentage here was 12.23%, even though it is material to both the revenue and it is material to both the profit. But in an exam paper, if it is immaterial to one and material to second, you have to take the higher percentage in context, right? Second, the revenue should be recognized when the performance obligation when the performance obligation is met, that is when the goods has been finally delivered, when the goods have been finally delivered to the customers and they have done the final inspection. Is that true? The revenue should be recognized when the performance obligation is met. That is when the goods have been finally delivered to customers and they have done the final inspection. So have you written the accounting treatment? Did you learn that on the day one that we need to write a concise accounting treatment? Or should I start to write the entire IFRS 15? No. Should I name the IAS? Should I name the IAS? No. Should I name the number of IAS? No. Examiner was saying in the day one, there is no marks, right, for name and number of the IFRS or IAS. So the revenue should be recognized when the goods are finally delivered to customer and they have done the final inspection, right? So we got the 2 marks, one for materiality and one for the accounting treatment, right? That ends the story. Okay. Now, for example, want to give you an extra knowledge here, right? Let's write this as an extra knowledge. If the requirement ask, if the requirement ask, open the inverted commas, impact on the financial statements. If, right, this question is not asking, right? If the requirement asks impact on the financial statement, I will take this line of the treatment from here. I'll bring it down, and after the full stop, I'll write a line in the red. Thus, currently, revenue is overstated and the profit is overstated too. Can you see the impact on the financial statement? Thus, currently the revenue is overstated and the profit is overstated. Did you learn this impact on the day one when we were discussing a question on risk of material misstatement? Materiality, treatment, risk, impact. Did you remember the impact from the day one under an overstatement? And was that the impact on the financial statement on the day one? On the day one, we discussed the impact on the financial statement, right? So if the examiner asks you in a reporting question, impact on the financial statement, will you remember that? But in this question, is the examiner asking the impact on the financial statement? No. Is the examiner asking the impact on the audit report? Yes. Okay. Let's go back. Actions. Now, actions. What is the meaning of the word actions in a question on reporting? Try to understand that. The meaning of the word action is the actions the auditor should take to resolve a matter prior to issuing a qualified opinion, or prior to issuing a adverse opinion, or prior to issuing a disclaimer of opinion. So before you issue any modified opinion, what actions will the auditor take to resolve the matter? So what's the objective of action? Should resolve a matter prior. And if the matter is not resolved, then obviously the auditor has to issue a modified opinion, like a qualified opinion, adverse opinion, or a disclaimer of opinion. So is everyone understanding the word action? The action the auditor should take to resolve a matter. Take to resolve a matter prior to issuing a qualified opinion. If you see the requirement of the question, it also says that. It says, comment upon the method described above and explain the actions necessary before the audit report can be signed. So before you sign the audit report, you are taking these actions, right? Now, firstly, should I be discussing with the management the accounting treatment, uh, which is the first action, number one, discuss with Rocket those charged with governance, or discuss with Rocket finance director, because he was speaking to us in the last paragraph. Discuss with Rocket finance director, number one. What's the first section? Number one, discuss with Rocket finance director the accounting treatment to recognize the revenue, and to mention that the treatment followed by the company is incorrect. And the treatment followed by the company is incorrect. Number two discussion, discuss with Rocket Finance Director the need to adjust the $17 million recognized as revenue, the need to adjust the $17 million recognized as revenue, so that these are actions you're taking when the problem has arisen. So when you get to know that the revenue has been wrongly recognized, right? So prior to issuing the report, you're discussing them with the Rocket Finance Director, the accounting treatment to recognize revenue, and to mention that the treatment followed by the company is incorrect. You get to know this at the completion stage of the audit, right? Okay, the need to discuss the $17 million recognized as revenue, so that the need to adjust the 17 million recognized as revenue so that the financial statements are free from material misstatement, are free from material misstatement. So should we discuss with Rocket Finance Director that they should rectify the $17 million so that the financial statement becomes true and fair? Okay, number three action. Discuss with Rocket Finance Director the implication on the audit report, the implication on the audit report if the adjustment remains unresolved. Are we telling the adjust implication in the actions? We're just using a journal term here, right? We're just using a very journal term, the implication on the audit report. But where will we specify the implication? In the next heading, right? Implication for the audit report. But over here we are just telling that we should discuss with the finance director the implication on the audit report if the adjustment remain unresolved. Then next, seek a management representation. Seek a management representation if they intend not to adjust the financial statements. If the finance director tells you, if the finance director tells you that I'm not adjusting the financial statements, then ask him to give you a representation that you are not adjusting the financial statements, so that you have security in front of the shareholders. You have security in front of the shareholder. Seek a representation. If they intend Seek a representation, management representation, if they intend not to adjust the financial statement. So they should give you in writing that we're not adjusting the financial statement, and that they don't agree with the auditor. See the importance of this point. Are you trying to intimidate the management that give us a representation that you don't intend to adjust the financial statement? See, management will feel threatened here, right? Management will feel threatened and they will try to rectify the problem, because you're telling the management that if you don't want to rectify the problem, then give us a representation that you are sticking to the unadjusted financial statement. Is everyone clear with this point? How many marks have we got so far? How many discussions have we done? 3 discussions, and then seek. 3 discussions and a seek. So you're getting up to 4 marks, right? So are you getting the way of writing actions? Please, you need to see the answer which I have shared with you of all these questions so that you know how to write. You can continue writing more actions from my answer which I have been shared with you, but I just want to show you the flow of way you write in actions. Okay, the last thing we need to write is the implication for the audit report. How many marks we have for implication of audit report? How many marks we have? 5 marks for writing the implication if adjustments are not made. Now, seriously think that you have 5 marks for writing the implication on the audit report, and you go to the exam hall and you do this. The auditor should issue a modified opinion. Full stop, and you come out of the exam hall. Will you get 5 marks? No. Okay, you go to the exam hall and you do this. The auditor should issue a qualified opinion. Will you get 5 marks for this? You have 5 marks. You have 5 marks to score on implication for the audit report. So first we will tell the implication for the opinion, because opinion is part of the report, right? Now, when the examiner says implication for the report, try to understand that this report is a big word here. Did you saw that in the December 14 paper, the examiner was saying impact on the opinion and the report as two different things? Did you saw in the December 14 paper that the examiner was bifurcating into two things, impact on the opinion and the report? Do you believe report is a big word here? Now see, implication. First implication will be on the opinion. Is opinion part of the report? Second implication will be on the format, on the format of the report. What comes first, and what comes second in the exam paper. And the third implication is on the type of report. How many types of reports are there? Two types of reports, right? Modified report and unmodified report. And how many types of opinions are there? 4 types of opinion. And how many types of reports are there? 2. Okay, see how I write my 5 marks. I'll justify my 5 marks, right? Number 1, implication for the audit report. If the if the management refuse to adjust the financial statements, if the management refuse to adjust the financial statement for $17 million, comma, the financial statements will be materially misstated, comma, as $17 million as stated above is material to financial statements. Do we repeat 1.18% and 12.23%? No. See what I wrote? If the management refused to adjust the financial statement for $17 million, the financial statement will be materially misstated as $17 million as stated above is material to the financial statement, right? So have I tell examiner that this is a material misstatement? Number 2, thus the auditor will the auditor will issue a qualified opinion on the grounds of a material misstatement, on the ground of the material misstatement above. Number 3, the auditor will mention the auditor will put the qualified opinion auditor will put the qualified opinion bracket the except for opinion. The auditor will put the qualified opinion as the first para of the audit report, followed by the basis of qualified opinion, in which the auditor will sum up the wrong accounting treatment adopted by the management. And lastly, thus the auditor will issue a modified audit report. I'm not saying opinion. Thus the auditor will issue a modified audit report for Rocket Company on the basis of the above points. On the basis of the above points raised. Can you see how I went down explaining each point towards my gain of 5? If you would have, suppose examiner says implication for the report and you had 2 marks, will you write all this? No, you will just tell it is material and you will tell it is qualified. But if you get implication for a report for 5 marks, will you need to do all this? Can you understand the importance of the marks here? Not every time the examiner says impact on the report 5 marks. At times examiner says 2, at times examiner says 3. Will you see the number of marks you have for implication to decide how much to write? See, this is totally extra. This is totally extra, this paragraph here. This is totally an extra paragraph, that the opinion comes first and the basis comes after. But what was the need to write it? The need to write it was the number of marks. But had the number of marks been less, should I be writing the paragraph in yellow? Right? So you need to see the number of marks, right? So if the examiner says implication for the report 2 marks, I'll just be writing the first 2 paragraphs. But if the examiner says implication for the audit report 5, so I'll be telling about the opinion, I'll be telling about the format, right? So is everyone clear? So if the management refused to adjust the misstatements, the financial statements will be materially misstated. That's my first mark. Then I went down, issue a qualified opinion, basis should come first. This paragraph highlighted in the yellow, right, is giving me 2 marks. That basis comes after and opinion comes first is 2 marks. Right. Maximum marks you can get on implication for report is 5, right? 5 is the maximum marks. You cannot expect examiner giving the impact on report for 10 marks. That's next to impossible. The maximum marks, that's the reason of choosing Rocket as a question, that the maximum marks is 5 or less. I've given you the maximum marks, right? So if a question comes for less than 5 marks, can you write the impact on the audit report? Is everyone getting the impact on the audit report? But please understand one thing. Do you all believe that the report word audit report includes opinion? Number one, audit report includes the format, and audit report includes the type of report. So whenever the examiner asks you impact on audit report, will you see the number of marks to judge? Should you just be telling the impact on opinion, or you should be telling the impact on opinion plus the format? Or should you be telling the impact on opinion plus format and the type of report? So are you understanding the breakdown of the audit report, impact on audit report, opinion, format, and type of report? Is everyone clear on that? And is everyone clear on that? Should I write all 3 of them in every case? Should I write all 3 of them in every case? No, I should see the number of marks, right, to get through it. And did we got an extra knowledge from Rocket Company that if the question asks for impact on the financial statement, is everyone clear about impact on the financial statement? What exactly the impact on financial statement means? Did I demonstrated that in the question? What is exactly the meaning of the word impact on the financial statement? Is everyone clear? Okay, I'm moving out of June 17, right? Has this question helped you in opening your mindset about comment on the matters, how to write actions? Has this question opened your mindset about impact on the audit report? How many times the student just write a single sentence on impact on report and come out of the examination hall? I'm asking this question to so many repeaters in this session. Have you ever done that in the past exams, that you just wrote a line that the auditor should issue a qualified opinion and you thought, okay, I'll get 5 marks? Is that true? Did you ever bothered about going into that much depth? Did you ever bothered about going into that much depth? Okay, next question. December 14. Okay, the next question we are attempting is December 2014, question number 5B. And this time the question has requirements which are bifurcated into two parts. First, it says comment on the matters for each of the individual misstatements, each of the uncorrected misstatements. And then it says assuming that the management assuming that the management does not adjust the misstatements, justify justify an opinion, and impact on report. And we had 4 marks for this, and we had 9 marks for this, right? Okay, now how many misstatements we have to justify a comment on the matters? The first one, which relates with the share-based payment expense. The second one relates with the restructuring provision, and the third one relates with allowance for slow moving inventory. Now we have 9 marks. That means exactly I have 3 marks for each one of them. I have 3 for first, 3 for second, and 3 for next. And the word important here was each. For each, I need to discuss matters. And over here, does not adjust the misstatements. This was basically about aggregate. We were speaking of the aggregate here. Okay, let's find the answer. You first start with share-based payment, right? Materiality. You will be thinking about the very first thing, materiality. You will then be thinking about the treatment, and you will then be thinking about the individual impact, the individual opinion if the adjustment is not made, individual opinion if the adjustment is not made. So is everyone getting the breakdown of the 3 marks? And you will do this in all the 3 cases. You will do this for the restructuring provision, and you will do this for the allowance for slow moving inventory. So is everyone getting the breakdown of the marks? Again, the answer is shared with you. So you need to see the answer. I'm just trying to make a sketch answer. So to guide you, how are we bifurcating the number of marks? Okay, let's take one example, right, in full. I'll start with materiality of the share-based payment, right? The share-based payment expense, which is not recognized, the share-based payment expense of dollar 500,000. No, it's not 500,000. How much is that? Of 300,000. The share-based payment expense of 300,000, which is not recognized, is it's how much percent of the do we have all 3 things given in this question? Let's just check that out. Do we have all 3 things here? No, we have revenue of $2.5 million, and we have the total assets of $35 million, right? So we have 2 things here, right? We have the total assets of 35 million, and we have the revenue of 2.5 million. So we'll divide them by both, right? Okay, so we'll divide them by both. $300,000, which is not recognized, is 0.86% of the total assets and 12% of the revenue. So is it material to one and immaterial to the second? Everyone agrees with that? Is it immaterial to the assets and material to revenue? So how would I write that? Of the revenue, full stop. Thus, it is material to the it is material to the statement of comprehensive income. It is material to the statement of comprehensive income. It is material to the statement of comprehensive income and not to the statement of financial position. So is it the first time that we're getting a question like such, that where one thing is immaterial, the other is material? And this happens in reporting question, right? Right. So the revenue, the expense, and sorry, the share-based payment expense, then you come to the treatment. The share-based payment expense should be recognized, and I'm assuming that you read the question, right? The share-based payment expense should be recognized by the share-based payment expense should be recognized each year. The share-based payment expense should be recognized by taking into account the fair value of the shares at the grant date. The share-based payment expense should be recognized by taking into account the fair value of the shares at the grant date by debiting the expense and crediting the equity. Is that true? That the share-based payment expense should be recognized by taking into account the fair value of the shares at the grant date by debiting the expense and crediting the equity. Has the management done so? Has the management debited the expense and credited the equity? No. Have they recognized the share-based payment expense? No. So what is the auditor telling the management? The auditor is telling the management that, see this, the auditor is telling the management that debit you should debit the profit and loss account. You should debit the profit and loss account, which is the expense, and you should credit the financial position. You should credit the financial position, which is basically the equity. So are you telling management what adjustment should they be making? What should they debit and what should they credit? So has the management recognized the debit and credit? No, you're telling them that you should do this. And if they fail to do so, is it material? Yes, it's material. So finally, what will we do? We wrote the two things, right? 1 and 2. And now we're writing the final thing, which is the individual impact. If the management does not recognize the share-based payment expense, the auditor will issue which opinion? The auditor will issue a qualified opinion on the basis that it is a material misstatement as determined above. Should we only write auditor will issue a qualified opinion, or will we say auditor will issue a qualified opinion on the basis of being a material misstatement as determined above? Is it important to write that? Was the examiner telling us that you should not only write a qualified opinion, but you should also justify why? So can you see the 3 marks writing in front of your screen? This is what we write for 3 marks, right? First, the materiality. then the accounting treatment, and then the individual impact. Are you getting the track? Will you do the same exercise for restructuring provision, and will you do the same exercise for the it allows for slow moving inventory? The answer has already been shared. You will find the materiality, you will then comment on the accounting treatment, and you will then go down discussing the impact. Do you see my accounting treatments? Day 1, day 1, day 5. What was the examiner saying on the day 1? Briefly describe the accounting treatment. So should I start telling about that under the IFRS 2, there are two types of schemes, one being equity settled and one being cash settled, and then starting telling about how to recognize a share-based payment scheme and how to recognize a cash settled share-based payment scheme? Should I start telling all the knowledge of IFRS 2 when I'm writing the treatment, or should I just keep it confined to the share-based payment scheme? Should I tell about cash settled? In the answer, no. Okay, so if you're clear on that, right. Will you all continue with restructuring provision and allowance for slow moving inventory in the same order? Should I go down with the aggregate impact? Okay, let's do the aggregate impact, because this is a point where students do a blunder in exam paper, right? Aggregate impact. Okay, now when I look at the aggregate impact, justify an opinion. Justify an opinion. And then the examiner says impact on report. How many things are part of report? I just mentioned that 10 minutes ago. When the examiner says impact on report, we are concerned about opinion, the format, and the type of report. But has the examiner given us opinion separately, justify an opinion and impact on report? So when I am writing the impact on report, will I be mentioning the opinion? Will I be mentioning the opinion in the impact on report in this question? I have already given the opinion above, right? I've already given the opinion above. So when I write the impact on report, will I repeat the opinion? No, because I've already given that above. Try to understand, right? You've already given the opinion above. See how to do it, how to do it. Now justify an opinion. Number one, if the management, if the management refuse to adjust the misstatements, if the management refuse to adjust the misstatements, the auditor needs to aggregate the total, the auditor needs to aggregate the total impact of the aggregate misstatements on the financial statements. The aggregate misstatements total. How much is the aggregate misstatement? Can you tell me how much is the aggregation of the misstatements? Okay, that's wonderful. Uh, can you see the P&L in front of your screen? And can you see there is two debits? There is two debits, 310,000 debit. And can you see there is a credit of 50,000 in a P&L? So what is the net impact on the profit? What is the net impact on the profit of the shareholder? If you are a shareholder of this company, what will be the net impact on your profit? 310 minus 50, right? Aggregate means net. And when we are looking at the aggregate, right, we're looking at the profits because the shareholder is focused on the profit, not on the balance sheet. So what's the net impact on the shareholder profit? The net impact on the shareholder profit is 260,000. So is everyone clear on the net off? Are we taking the gross misstatements or are we taking the net misstatements? Net. So is everyone clear that the net misstatement is 260,000? Okay, let's write this. The aggregate misstatements total dollar 260,000 bracket dollar 310,000 minus dollar 50,000 bracket close. So you show the working to examiner. The aggregate misstatements total dollar 260, which is how much of the revenue? Which is 2.08, sorry, which is 10.4%, right? Which is 10.4% of the revenue and 0.74% of the total assets. Thus, it is material to the statement of comprehensive income and not to the statement of financial position. So which one we take, higher or lower? Higher. Okay. So in order to justify the opinion, should I tell examiner the aggregate impact? Have I done the aggregation in the first 9 marks? The first 9 marks was individual, right? So am I doing a different working for examiner? This $260,000, is this giving me any marks here? To calculate 260, you have 1 mark, right? And to calculate the materiality, you have another 1 mark. How many of the students in the exam hall will calculate the 260 wrong? So examiner has given you 1 mark for the calculation of 260, right? And 1 mark for finding out whether it is material or not. So how many marks have we gained from this paragraph? We have already gained 2 marks from this paragraph, right? And then you justify the opinion. Thus, the auditor will issue thus the auditor will issue a qualified opinion on the basis of on the basis will issue a qualified opinion on the basis that the financial statements of Bradley Company are materially misstated for the aggregate misstatements above. For the aggregate misstatements above. Do you all agree with this? The auditor will issue a qualified opinion because of they are materially misstated due to the aggregate misstatements. So am I getting the third mark here? Another 1 mark. 3. Now comes the impact on the report. The auditor will issue a modified report. Is that true? The auditor will issue a modified report. The auditor will issue a modified report for to Bradley. Auditor will issue a modified report to Bradley, which includes the qualified opinion and the basis of qualified opinion. So I'm taking my 4th mark. So can you understand that? Can I do the answer the way I like to do it? Or should I do the answer the way the examiner wants me to do it? Was the examiner asking me to first tell me an opinion? And then was the examiner asking me to write an impact on the report? In the last question, the examiner was saying, write an impact on the report, and he gave me 5 marks. So should I need to make the 5 points to make 5 marks? So is everyone getting a sense of the impact on opinion and the impact on the report? Do you all believe impact on report, which came in the last question, is a bigger subject matter? In this question, the examiner bifurcated that between the two. So is everyone clear on this structure of the answer? Have you got the importance of reading the requirements, bifurcating the marks, exactly knowing what is to be done and how to write in the answer? Have this exercise after the break have helped you in terms of formulating the answer? The answer for both the questions have been shared with you, right? So please ensure that the remaining part is being drafted by you at back at home, and you sit down and try to solve it in the best possible manner, right? I just want to do one recap here of things which I've just discussed in the last 30 minutes, particularly about the drafting style. I just want to do a recap for that. First, is there a need to carefully read the requirements? Have you all understand that? Need to carefully read the requirements to pick how many things to be done, to pick how many things to be done. Is that true? Then is there a need to see the marks allocation? Is there a need to see the marks allocation? How to allocate the marks? Then, then is there a need to plan the structure of the answer? Structure of the answer. And is there a need to differentiate between impact on audit report versus impact on financial statement? Are both the same? Differentiate between, right, impact on the audit report versus impact on the financial statement. And then differentiate between impact on opinion versus impact on report. Which is broader in the B? Impact on opinion, opinion versus impact on report, which is more broader? Report. And do you know the breakup of the report? Okay, so is this important? Need to carefully read the requirement, need to see the marks allocation, need to plan the structure of the answer, differentiate between impact on audit report versus impact on the financial statement, and impact on opinion versus impact on report. And is there a need to do this as well? Need to write the accounting treatment concisely, and need to determine the materiality on all factors in a reporting question, right? I'm talking about a reporting question recap, right? Need to determine the materiality on all factor and take whichever is higher, and take whichever is higher, right? Need to determine the materiality in all factors and take whichever is higher. And then last, when you're doing need need to aggregate misstatements when there are many in one company. When there are many in one company, need to aggregate misstatements when there are many in one company. Is that true? On net basis rather gross basis. On net basis rather gross basis. So have we got all these 7 in the session today? Have we got all these 7 done in the session today? Is everyone clear on the word matter? What to write for matters in exam paper? Is everyone clear on the word actions? Matter, action. Is everyone clear on the impact on audit report? And is everyone clear on the impact on financial statement? Okay, so that fulfills the recap, right? Recap of things in the reporting context. Okay, now just one last thing to be done from the reporting area, which is to discuss. Okay, see these common errors in front of your screen. Let's go through them. Let's be very clear that we are not doing these common errors in exam paper. See the first common error: using an emphasis of a meta paragraph for a material misstatement or a failure to obtain evidence. These give rise to qualified opinions. Is everyone clear on that? Can we use an emphasis of a meta paragraph in an exam paper when there is a material misstatement? Can we include an emphasis of a meta paragraph when the auditor has failed to obtain evidence? No. Examiner is saying this will result in a qualified opinion. Look at the second one. Examiner says using, in the second one, the examiner says using an emphasis of a meta paragraph for uncertainties surrounding going concern. These have a separate paragraph. Do you believe that if there is a material uncertainty relating to going concern which has been disclosed in the financial statement, will we add an emphasis of a meta paragraph? No. Examiner is saying they have a separate paragraph. Is there a separate paragraph for material uncertainties relating to going concern? MURGC. Should we write material uncertainties in going concern in an emphasis of a meta paragraph? Is everyone clear on that? And see the last one. Using an emphasis of a meta paragraph, using an emphasis of a meta paragraph for something which would be a key audit matter in a listed company. So had I been clear on that, that key audit matter paragraph comes in a listed company and an emphasis of a meta paragraph comes in a non-listed company. So use an emphasis for something which would be a key audit matter for a listed company. So is everyone clear on that? That CAM should be in a listed company. You're not thinking about emphasis of a meta paragraph in a listed company. Are you thinking about emphasis of a meta paragraph in a listed company? No. Okay. Are you thinking about an emphasis of a meta paragraph in a non-listed company? Okay, so please have a bifurcation between CAM and emphasis, right? I have also covered this in my previous webinars. You can go through them. So this common error is done, right? Let's see another list of common errors, right? Let's see another list of common errors. See this common error in front of your screen. Candidates often identify correctly there is a material misstatement in the accounts that is not pervasive. So examiner is saying candidates do identify correctly that there is a material misstatement in the accounts that is not pervasive. Then state that the opinion should be unmodified. Is that right? Candidates often identify correctly there is a material misstatement. There is a material misstatement. There is a material misstatement. And then the examiner is saying that the student says that the opinion should state that the opinion should be unmodified. Is that right? Honestly, I have no idea why student puzzle things in exam paper. You need to keep logics right. You need to keep logics. What was the examiner saying? Examiner was saying you need to be structured. In an exam paper, when you conclude this is a material misstatement and in a rush and in a panic you say the opinion should be unmodified and you come out of the exam hall very happy that I wrote a wonderful answer, but you've not written a wonderful answer. Then the examiner says or that the misstatement should be covered by an emphasis of a meta paragraph. Can a misstatement be covered in an emphasis of a meta paragraph? Do you agree? This is incorrect. A material misstatement which is not pervasive will result in a qualified opinion. A material misstatement which is not pervasive will result in a qualified opinion. So do you agree with what the examiner is saying? So these are errors, right? These are errors which the examining team has identified from the past papers the student do in the exam hall. Will you all be reading these common errors from this article? Because there is a chance that you might do these common errors. So please read the common errors, do your self analysis that where have you went wrong in the prior exam settings. And those of you who are going for the first time, please ensure that you do read these common errors. You do read these common errors so that you don't do them in the exam paper. So, irrespective you're repeating the AAA paper or you're going in for the first time, please ensure that you have the logics very clear. Because if you spoil the logics and you go to the exam hall, there might be a disastrous situation coming out of the September exam sitting. Okay, so I have encouraged this article to be read, right? So now it's left to your part when you read it and how you read it. Now, the final thing I need to focus on. There is a frequently asked question from reporting. Frequently asked questions. Number one, what is pervasive? Is that a frequently asked question? What is pervasive? It is. Let's do it. When you identify a misstatement in exam paper, find out the percentage of the misstatement by dividing it with total assets or profit or revenue, as you do, right? When you identify a misstatement in the exam paper, find out the percentage of misstatement by dividing it with the total assets, profit, and revenue. If the percentage is or more than 60%, then it becomes then it becomes pervasive and hence a adverse opinion. Because for students, pervasive starts too early. Pervasive means substantial proportion of the financial statement. If you read ISA 705, which tells you about pervasive, it says something which affects the substantial proportion of the financial statement. Is everyone clear on the first example of pervasive? This is the first example of pervasive, right? This is not absolute example. If in the exam paper you find a percentage and the percentage is or more, right? Second, when when you aggregate when you aggregate misstatements and the percentage of aggregate misstatements is 60 is 60% or more, it becomes pervasive and hence an adverse opinion. So can a misstatement be individually pervasive? Yes. Can misstatements be pervasive on an aggregate basis? Yes. For example, there is a misstatement which is 12%. Is it pervasive alone, 12%? No. Then there is another misstatement, which is 40%. Is 40% alone pervasive? No. Okay. Then there is another misstatement, which is 8%. Is 8% alone pervasive? No. But when we aggregate the three, the aggregate of three becomes 12 plus 40 plus 8 exactly becomes 60%. So have it become pervasive in aggregation? Is everyone getting this? So can a misstatement be pervasive on an individual basis? Yes. Can a misstatement be pervasive on an aggregate basis? Yes. Is everyone getting this first and second bullet? Yes, it might be on P&L and L and it might be on the balance sheet, right? Whichever is higher, right? Next, third, if a misstatement, if a misstatement, even though small or big, if a misstatement converts the profit to loss. Suppose there is a misstatement in the exam paper which is capable of converting the profit to loss, right? So the first situation, the bullet number one is an individual misstatement. The bullet number two is the aggregate misstatements, and the bullet number three is if a misstatement converts the profit into loss is equal to pervasive. Is everyone clear on the three? Fourth, if the auditor is unable to obtain evidence. The first three situations of pervasive, right? The first three situations of pervasive was when there is a wrong accounting treatment, and you'll find the percentages, right? The second situation is when the auditor is unable to obtain evidence. Do you believe when the auditor is unable to obtain evidence, there is also something known as pervasive, which results in a disclaimer of opinion? Because if the auditor is unable to obtain evidence which is pervasive will result into disclaimer. Now the rules I made above is only about a wrong accounting treatment where you can find the percentage, right? Is everyone clear on that? Now let's make a rule for when the auditor is unable to obtain evidence. What makes pervasive? Number one, management refuse to provide a representation letter. Management refused to provide a representation letter. This is default pervasive in the exam and is equal to a disclaimer of opinion. And please, we do the aggregations as we did just in the Breadley company question, right? Because there are a lot of questions coming on the aggregation. We did aggregation, right, in Breadley. That aggregation is to be done on net, and the net is to be divided by the total assets, the net is to be divided by the sales, the net is to be divided by the profit, and if that percentage is 60 or above, then automatically it becomes pervasive, right? So do we take aggregations on gross basis? No, we take aggregations on net basis. I just took an example, right? That 40% plus 8% plus 12%, just to demonstrate you the way you conclude things. So if the management refused to provide a representation letter, that's the only situation under unable to obtain evidence that you give a disclaimer. But apart from other situations, for example, there is a computer virus attack And for a computer virus attack, you could not gather information on receivables, right? There was a snowfall, severe weather conditions, and you could not visit the inventory warehouse. These are all material situations. The only situation which comes under pervasive is when the management refused to provide a representation letter, automatically becomes pervasive disclaimer opinion. Is that clear with everyone? Is everyone sound on the first frequently asked questions? Right? Okay, the next one. The last frequently asked question, a very common question. Mostly the student asks what is pervasive. I tried bracketing that out under the two headings, a wrong accounting treatment and unable to obtain evidence. Yes, scope limitation, right? Scope limitation is unable to obtain evidence. Scope limitation is an old word, right? Uh, Scope limitation is an old word. The new word is unable to obtain evidence, which is simply means limitation of scope. Yes, exactly. Whenever the management refuse to provide a representation letter, this will automatically become disclaimer, because representation letter is something very fundamental to the auditor. Okay, so is everyone clear on the percentages? When to use which percentage and how? Is everyone clear on that? For representation letter, how can we find the percentage? Muhammad Hafiz Abdul Wahab. Representation letter is a letter which is fundamental to the auditor. We're not finding the percentages for representation letter. We're saying the letter has been refused as a fundamental letter, right? As a fundamental letter, it should be pervasive. This is fundamental. I hope everyone accepts the importance of a representation letter, because representation letter is the one through which the management acknowledges their responsibilities. It is a representation letter which you take on the subjective areas, right? So for a representation letter, you could not find the percentage in exam paper, right? I hope you're clear with that, Muhammad Hafiz Abdul Wahab. Yes, obviously, then the problem will be resolved, right? Uh, Muhammad Hafiz Abdul Wahab, you're trying to create those ifs, and that's where I see that you can spoil a reporting question, right? Because you're thinking about a lot of ifs. Don't think about ifs, go on the logics. I'm giving you examples which is coming from the ISA 705 and 706. Is that clear, Muhammad Hafiz? Okay, let's go back and then think about the other situations, right? Another very confusing situations where the student tries to spoil a reporting question is that they try to rush over a reporting question, and they try to ignore some very important things in a reporting question. I'm giving you an example. Tell me what you should be doing here. Situation 1, listed company. The auditor disagree the auditor disagree on revenue recognition. Number 1. And number 2, the auditor considered revenue recognition as a risky area. However, during the course of the audit, the evidence gathered concluded that revenue is rightly recognized. Revenue is rightly recognized. And we are thinking about a company which is listed. What should I do in the first situation? The auditor disagree on revenue recognition. See, the same problem is happening again, right? Auditor disagree on revenue recognition. Arsalan Ahmed is saying unqualified opinion. How can you give an unqualified opinion when the auditor disagree on something? See, the problems have already started and your exams is on the 2nd of December. Obviously, I'm just giving you a blank statement. Disagree on a revenue recognition, irrespective of the value, irrespective of the value. Can I give an unqualified opinion, Arsalan? So see, if the problems are being happening in the sessions, second of September, you have your exams. You can easily spoil reporting in the next 3 weeks. So for the first situation, should the auditor think about giving a qualified opinion, irrespective of the not knowing the value, just thinking? And in the second situation, what should I do? Is there a problem in the second situation? Is there a problem in the second situation? Revenue recognition was a risky area, but when I gathered evidence on the revenue recognition, I thought revenue recognition is right. Is it something positive? Is it something positive? Do you all believe revenue recognition is an important area of the financial statements? Yes. And has it been recognized rightly after the evidence was gathered? So what is the ISA 701 says? That such matters, risky areas is an example which should go into the CAM only when the matter has been positive. But if the revenue recognition is a risky area and the revenue is wrongly recognized, can I give CAM? Revenue recognition is a risky area and the revenue is wrongly recognized. Can I give CAM? No. But revenue recognition is a risky area and the revenue has been rightly recognized and the company is listed, right? So if the revenue recognition is a risky area and the revenue is wrongly recognized and the revenue is wrongly recognized, will I give a qualified opinion considering the materiality, right? And if the revenue is rightly recognized, then I'll be giving up a CAM, right? Okay, that's one situation, right? Second, the there is a contingent liability of $40 million. The profit before tax of a company is $130 million, which has been rightly disclosed, which has been rightly disclosed in the notes to the financial statements, which has been rightly disclosed in the notes to the financial statements. Company is non-listed, one situation, and the second situation is company is listed. What will you do in the first situation? $40 million of a contingent liability has been rightly disclosed in the notes. The company is non-listed, right? So we'll give an emphasis of a meta paragraph. And in this case, company is listed, we'll give a CAM. But there is a problem with students. They wrote learn that CAM is for listed and the rote learn emphasis is for non-listed. Have you already rote learned this? CAM is for listed and emphasis of a meta paragraph is for non-listed. You rote learn this, right? And you still have a confusion in your mind. A lot of time the student compare CAM versus emphasis and they try to impair the meaning of the word CAM and emphasis. Compare. First, please understand. Okay, fine. CAM is for listed and emphasis of a meta paragraph is for non-listed. That's one. Second, CAM is for significant areas of the, CAM is included for number one, risky areas of the financial statements. CAM is included for subjective areas like fair values, provisions, subjective areas. CAM is included for events after the balance sheet date. CAM is included for significant disclosures in financial statements. But they have to be positive, right? If there is a risky area, if there is a risky area which is wrongly recognized, can you give CAM? If there is a subjective area which is wrongly calculated, can you give CAM? If there is a event after the balance sheet date which is not adjusted, can you give CAM? If there is a significant disclosure which is wrongly given, can you give CAM? So what is an attribute of CAM? CAM is included for risky areas. CAM is included for subjective areas. CAM is included for events after the balance sheet date. CAM is included for significant disclosures. But the important thing is they should all be they should all be positive. They should all be positive. Can CAM come for negative things? So CAM is broader, right? CAM is so broad, it includes risky areas, subjective areas, events after the balance sheet date, and significant disclosures in the financial statement. Now, when you compare that with an emphasis of a meta paragraph, emphasis of a meta paragraph is included only for one thing, only for one thing, that is significant disclosures in financial statements. So now compare CAM with emphasis. A lot of times students say CAM and emphasis is the same thing. It's only listed and non-listed. Is CAM and emphasis the same thing? Can you understand the depth? CAM is so depthful, right? CAM is for risky areas. CAM is for subjective areas. CAM is for events after the balance sheet date. CAM is for significant disclosures. Even CAM is for significant transactions. Significant transactions like asset held for sale. CAM is for significant transactions like anything, anything for the first time, anything for the first time. Example, company acquired, company acquired, company acquired a business, or a company disposed a subsidiary. Are these all important things? Company acquired a business, company disposed subsidiary. If they are right, that the treatment of the disposal has been done rightly, or the treatment of acquisition has been done rightly, or the treatment of the asset held for sale is done rightly, you will include CAM. Okay, just to a recap. Is everyone understanding the depth of CAM here? Key audit matter, key audit matter. And when do the auditor identify the key audit matter? At the planning stage? Do the auditor understand at the planning stage any fundamental changes in the business from the last year to this year? So can you connect the CAM with planning stage, that auditor do identify the key audit matters at the planning stage? But if the key audit matter is negative, can we include a CAM? But should it be positive? Should it be positive? Yes, any new standard introduced for the first time, any new standard introduced for the first time is also a CAM. And do you understand emphasis of a meta paragraph? Just for a disclosure, it just comes for a disclosure, right? So which is more broader here, CAM or emphasis? And do you understand that can we include emphasis in a listed company? Can we include emphasis in a listed company? No. Can we include CAM in a non-listed company? Can we include CAM in a non-listed company? Can we include CAM in a non-listed company? Is everyone clear? Just a quick recap. I need your feedback for the session today because we're just into the last 2 minutes now. So please start to drop your feedback about the session today. Tell me, how have you got some change from on your perception to reporting at the start of the session and now? Obviously, in 3 hours, I could not have done the entire reporting, right? But I could have given you the more important areas where you should do right, because there are so many issues students do in reporting. I tried identifying them and giving attentions to them in my session today within the limitation of the 3 hours, right? There could be so much more that could have been discussed, but obviously the time is constrained here, right? In which you need to put the best possible things to the students. So have you got some right perspectives of reporting, and have you been into a clarity mode now? Right. So these 5 days of practice to pass webinar on the advanced audit and assurance, which was being organized by ACCA Pakistan, have these 5 days has benefited you? Have these 5 days added value to your preparation towards September exams? Have they really benefited you? 5 days before and 5 days after. Think about your situation on Monday, and now think about your situation on Friday. Are you feeling better prepared for exams in September? Right. So it's try just to it's time to wind up things now, and I wish you best of luck to all of you who are preparing for exams in September. And I wish you all success in your exams coming up in September. It was I just have this much time, the 15 hours, to spend with you as part of this Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar being organized by ACCA Pakistan. I am Kashif Kamran, and I was your facilitator across the 5 days. And with wishing you success and wishing you best of luck for your exams in September, it's time to sign off from this Practice to Pass webinar. And I will be in touch with you over the WhatsApp group, and that is it for the session, right? uh, Goodbye, Allah Hafiz, have a nice day, and prepare yourself effectively for your exams in September.